We're continuing our discussion on the book Compassion and Accountability by Nate Rager and Marshall Goldsmith, this time exploring the value switch. If you recall, compassion and accountability comes from being aware of your people's value, their capability, and their responsibility. We're talking here about value, and in terms of the value switch, what we're looking for is when the value switch is on is we believe and behave in ways that affirm people have innate value. When that value switch is off, value is conditional, and we behave in ways that reinforce that with our people. That deteriorates connection with your people. I love this approach that they talked about in one of the examples I provide on people when the value switch is on versus when the value switch is off. Are you on a scavenger hunt or are you on a treasure hunt? People that are on a scavenger hunt find what's wrong and they leverage it, okay, against people. When you're on a treasure hunt, you expect to find treasure and you affirm it. What's common in both the switch being on and switch being off is vulnerability. You can imagine when the switch is off, people aren't vulnerable. And when the value switch is on, you as a leader are vulnerable. That builds connection. Let me give you an example. When I was growing up, my father had a temper. I found out why a lot of these things, but just what he did to me when I was a young boy stuck with me for a while because I can remember one time I was trying to change a nut, couple of, the nuts on a tire while we were rotating the tires. I was having the devil of a time trying to figure out which way do I left, right. He got upset with me, pulled me away, swore at me, and can't you do anything, and did it himself. That crushed me. And I think for a long time, I had this feeling I have to do something in order to be valuable. And truthfully, this is what a lot of people might feel. The people you lead, people have innate value. You need to reaffirm that with them. And it's not that, yes, they have to perform, but they innately have value. And just because they can't perform and you need to move on from them doesn't mean you don't need to treat them as if they have value. My dad and I got to know each other. We had lunch for a long time while I was working at a job in Fond du Lac. And I can remember when I went through my first divorce, I went out to the hangar where he was and was a little bit afraid of letting him know I was getting a divorce. My dad immediately responded and he says, "Why didn't you come to me? I would do anything for you. You could have talked to me." And I said, "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't feel I could." I said, "I didn't know how you would respond." And immediately he teared up. Second time I can remember him ever crying when I was around. That affirmed to me my value, his emotion, his being vulnerable. So think about that. Think about, again, we do have to keep people responsible and accountable for their job performance, but that doesn't mean we can't affirm their innate value as a person. We're all valuable as people. And keep that in mind, and you'll increase the connection with your people, make your people more accountable, and get better results. As always, if you have questions about compassion and accountability, how to turn your value switch on, contact me, dwick@positioningsystems.com.